The Dearborn Independent, December 25, 1920, number 9. Mr. Ford's page. The greatest adverse power which the evil minority in human society exercises upon it is the weakening of the sentiment of human confidence. When men begin to lose confidence in each other, society loosens and falls apart, like a wall in which the mortar has lost its cohesive power. All of the people sense this. One type senses it from the protective side and adopts an attitude of protective distrustfulness. Another type seeks to protect itself by preserving its mental comfort, which it does by adopting an attitude of general trustfulness. Both of these are mere policies determined by temperament. They are individual reactions. They do not go to the root of the trouble, though they may serve to tide the individual over the condition made by the trouble. The building up of human confidence is the normal action of society. The power of minorities to affect the life of majorities has many modern illustrations, especially on the side of evil. It seems rather a strange thing to say that evil minorities come into influence more speedily than do good minorities. A genuine reform takes a long time to accomplish, but an evil influence seems to run its course like wildfire. This is not to be wondered at, since evil, like a rank weed, comes to maturity quickly and thus hastens its end, whereas a form of good, being of sturdier growth and having a longer future before it, requires a longer time to ripen. The whole fact is full of hopefulness. When we see a wrong thing coming into full flower, we may be certain that its end is near. An illustration of the power of minorities to affect the life of the people is to be found in the banditry, which has grown up in many of our large cities. Now, bandits are so few as to be hardly worthy to be dignified by the name minority. They are an infinitesimal fraction, measured by the mass of the population. And yet, every city where 1 or 2 or 3 bandits have operated nightly is more or less influenced in its thought and action by the fact that these few lawless ones exist. This is very noticeable among the motorist population. There was a time when the helpful hand was the rule of the road. If a car was in trouble in a lonely place, passing drivers would stop to inquire if they could help. They might have the special tool, or the knowledge, or the extra gallon of gas which would help the stalled car out. That has all passed, not because of the drying up of the springs of human kindness, but because a few men have been held up when they have stopped under the impression that a motor party was in trouble. Nobody is taking any chances now. Not long ago, a man ran out of gas on a country road at midnight. A dozen cars passed, and the man hailed them for a lift to a telephone or a gas station. As soon as a driver would spot him waving his hands in the roadway, the speed was put on, and he was passed with a rush. It happened in this instance that most of the drivers who passed the hailing figure were his own neighbors. But human trustfulness had been driven out of them by a caution inspired by the fact that road bandits had used precisely that kind of lure. There is no blame attaching to a circumstance like that, except to the carelessness of the man who failed to fill his gas tank. But it is a homely and true illustration of the effect which minorities have on us, especially with reference to possible evil. It illustrates also the effect on social relations which the existence of a small but active evil influence can have. Take the midnight instance on the road. Collect every driver within 20 miles of that spot, and you would probably find as normal and decent a group as could be assembled anywhere. But out there on the road, it was all different, because they knew what might be done. This is a situation which exists under a number of different forms, and there are 2 reactions to it. One type of mind reacts to it in this way. Trust everybody, and if you are stung, charge it up to experience. It is better to be mistaken trusting everybody than to do injustice by distrusting everybody. This type doubtless adopts that policy for its own comfort. Chronic distrustfulness is an unpleasant condition to support. The most determinedly distrustful man finds himself slipping back into normal social trustfulness occasionally, and it is the irony of circumstance that often he slips back just in time to bestow his trust where it is betrayed. It is more comfortable to accept people as they come, trusting that the majority will be on the square, and some people adopt that course as their policy. The other type has been alluded to and need not be further described. While it is true that in the higher relations of business there can be no achievement without mutual confidence, it is also true that business tends more and more toward the attitude of taking no chances. Business is a true saying, which means that there is a way of doing business which makes it secure from the consequences of any lapses of character, and that is the method of doing it on strictly impersonal terms. The point seems to be here, the type that adopts a policy of trustfulness in order to secure its own mental comfort, as well as the type which adopts a policy of consistent distrustfulness in order to prevent deception or loss, contributes nothing to the main problem, which is the existence in the world of a minority which has power to embarrass and fracture and weaken human relations to such a point where the adoption of one or the other of these policies becomes almost a necessity. Human confidence is the fundamental essential to all social achievement, and the lack of it is the one condition which makes social breakdown possible. Take every one of the socially disruptive doctrines and movements which are operative today, and you will find that their whole object is the destruction of confidence between man and man. They are taking the mortar out of the walls that compose the house of humanity, in the hope that when a strong gale blows, the house will topple into ruins, and then those men who covet what others have earned will swarm forth and seize it. It is curious that in Russia, the working man suffered most. What is earned was commandeered, and men who did not earn it were given it to enjoy. The non-workers have about eaten up what the workers had produced, and the end, of course, is near. Men may pretend to covet the heaps of gold that represent the working capital of a nation. But heaps of gold are nothing. What they really steal is what the working men, the producers at both ends of the industrial system, have made, because that is the only stuff worth stealing. It used to be that the divisionists, the destroyers of human confidence, divided society into labor and capital and sought to pit them against one another. But that did not destroy the basis of human confidence quickly enough. So they invented a third class, which they endeavored to slip in as a wedge between labor and capital. They invented the middle class. The middle class has been made to appear as a buffer state, which capital has reared between itself and labor. The clerks, the bookkeepers, the doctors, the teachers, the small businessmen. In short, that group of men who are the servants of the producers, waiting on them while they work, and serving them in supplying their homes and doing their work in city affairs. All these useful people have been exalted into the sinister dignity of being a buffer state behind which capital hides from the force of labor. It is rather ridiculous, but it was very serious in Russia. The proletariat killed these people because they wore white collars. People who worked in the factories and whose work was clean had to hide their clean clothes in order to save their lives. To be dirty meant to be one of the people. You see to what lengths this distrust of each other can go, and to what social insanity it can lead. It is just as essential that we should banish these divisive and destructive things from society at large as that a city should drive bandits out, in order that citizens may be able to pass one another on the streets at night without regarding each other as potential bandits.